Welcome to Basketball Cinema, where we revisit the most important and iconic games in NBA history. I'm Jay Canada, and today we're looking at Game 4 of the 2004 NBA Finals between the Detroit Pistons and LA Lakers. Today marks the second video here in our 4-week series on Basketball Cinema, looking at failed NBA Superteams. Last week we spent some time in Houston with Hakeem, Chuck, and Glide, while today we're chilling with Shaq and Kobe Bryant. Darn it, that almost rhymed too. The LA Lakers were a full-fledged dynasty in the early 2000s. They had won 3 consecutive championships from 2000 through 2002, powered by arguably the most lethal dynamic duo in NBA history, Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant, a strong supporting cast, and arguably the greatest head coach of all time in Phil Jackson. As expected, when a team spends so much time in the spotlight like the Lakers did, the inner workings of the franchise weren't always smooth, specifically the relationship between their two superstars. This fracture was partially responsible for the Lakers coming up short on their bid to win 4 straight rings in 2003, as LA would fall in the second round to Tim Duncan and the eventual champion San Antonio Spurs. But the Lakers weren't ready to shut the door on their dynasty window just yet. In summer of 2003, the Lakers would add 2 players who were on their way to the Basketball Hall of Fame, in Karl Malone and Gary Payton. Now, Malone was 40 years old and clearly past his prime as a player, but was fresh off averaging 21 points a game in 02-03 with the Jazz, and seemingly had a lot of juice left even though he was almost ready to receive a senior's discount at IHOP. Meanwhile, Payton was slightly less geriatric than the mailman, joining the Lakers at age 35, and he had just averaged 19 points, 9 assists per game in the 03 playoffs with Milwaukee. Haha, bet you forgot Gary Payton played for the Bucks in his career. Yeah, I also forgot, so don't feel bad. Again, I'll emphasize that the 2 future Hall of Famers weren't in their prime any longer, but 2 very productive players still with NBA Finals experience were brought to LA to be the 3rd and 4th option behind arguably the league's 2 best players. Super Team. In addition to the new look Big 4 in Tinseltown, the Lakers still had holdovers Derek Fisher, Luke Walton, Devin George, Rick Fox all on their roster from their championship years. Yeah, they had depth too. On paper, the only thing with the potential to stop the Lakers from dropping in the 6 Infinity Stones and snapping the NBA world into an oblivion was Star-Lord, baby! Yeah, I'm just kidding. That dude fumbled the bag.
No, he didn't.
In actuality, it was the aforementioned fractured relationship between Shaq and Kobe. The 2003 offseason included the sexual assault case against Bryant, as well as Shaq making numerous comments to the media regarding his role as true leader of the Lakers, and also Kobe saying Shaq came to training camp fat and out of shape. So overall, just normal best friend tension. When the dust had settled though and the season got underway, Kobe vowed he and Shaq could coexist, saying, quote, "We're cool. He said what he said, I said what I said, we put it behind us." Oh, good. Yeah, cool. Shaq and Kobe, we're cool. Yeah, okay. That sounds just like when a woman says she's fine. Pro tip. She's never actually fine. The Lakers would begin the 03-04 season 21-3, gaining momentum towards being called the greatest team ever. Unfortunately, an injury to Malone, though, limited him to just 42 games played, and the Lakers would modestly slip into the playoffs with a 56-26 record. Once there, however, the Lakers found a groove, beating the Yao Ming-led Rockets in 5 games, the reigning champion Spurs in 6, and the MVP Kevin Garnett-led T-Wolves in 6, advancing to the NBA Finals. In the finals, they'd meet the Detroit Pistons, who had made the conference finals a year prior. Still though, everybody and their grandmother expected the Lakers to win with relative ease.
The other thing is the mental advantage is Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. Those are the 2 best players in the series. And for Larry Brown, he has to go into the series thinking, how am I going to stop one of these guys, much less both of them? That's the mental edge they have in every series.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I have no clue who that analyst was, but he was saying what basically everyone was thinking. How can you beat Kobe and Shaq? As mentioned though, the Pistons were building themselves a resume. In 02 they made the second round, 03 the conference finals, and in 2004 they pushed through everyone else in the East. Detroit was powered almost exclusively by their studly starting 5, Chauncey Billups, Richard Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace, and Ben Wallace. Each player was relied upon to play big minutes and to play hard, tough, defensive minutes. In case you didn't know, the mid-2000s Pistons calling card was defense. And that's literally it, just defense. 2004 was the third slowest season by pace in the history of the league, with the second lowest points per game average of the modern era. The Pistons were at the forefront, allowing a league best 84 points a game to opponents while finishing second in defensive rating. They suffocated dudes, and they truly believed they could beat this Lakers team.
I mean, once we got Rashid, man, we felt as though that we were invincible. I'm telling you, we didn't believe that we could be beat by anybody, tell you the truth.
Detroit was able to steal Game 1 87-75 before LA returned serve with an 8-point win in Game 2. The Pistons held the Lakers to just 68 points in a Game 3 blowout, setting up a potential stranglehold situation in Game 4 at the Palace. Bill Simmons would later write about the 2004 finals, saying, quote, "Since the 1976 merger, only one finals result still doesn't make sense on paper, when the 04 Pistons defeated a more talented but quietly imploding Lakers team. But they had 4 future Hall of Famers. The Lakers were a super team. How could they possibly fail? Well, let's find out together." Just before tip, I also feel obligated to mention that the Pistons had done a fantastic job defensively on Shaq and Kobe. Kobe was averaging just 23 points a game on 41% shooting, while Shaq was at a manageable 26 a game. More importantly, Detroit was just straight up defending them, not sacrificing points to the supporting cast to double the Lakers stars.
We know Shaq and Kobe's gonna get their numbers. Two of the great players in the league. We just play everybody honest. We're not gonna double team. We're gonna force those guys to make shots, make plays.
That was a seemingly wild strategy trying to handle Kobe and Shaq one-on-one, but I can't emphasize enough just how brutally strong the Pistons were on that end of the court.
That some people call it ugly basketball. What do you call it?
Winning basketball. Everybody know offense sell ticket, defense win games.
Kobe was off the mark early, missing a healthy deep attempt with the shot clock winding down. He'd then brick a midi from the free throw line following an O board. A super slick play for the first points of the game, as Chauncey Billups missed a floater, but was able to tap out his rebound to Tayshaun Prince, who lankily finished at the rim. Lankily? Is that a word? He's got long arms. Kobe kept attacking, this time going at Ben Wallace and converting a tough finish. Here's the triangle offense at work, folks. Karl Malone on the entry feed to Shaq with Rick Fox in the corner. Shaq doing the rest with a drop step and slam. Remember that clip of Ben Wallace I showed like 17 seconds ago talking about not double teaming?
One, to get points, but two, they're trying to get Detroit to play double teams on Shaq so they can free up the other guys. That's one of the reasons the others haven't been able to score.
Doc Rivers on the broadcast co-signing what Ben said. The Lakers needed Detroit to double up to free their offense. Frustration was evident already for the Lakers, who were down 2-1 in the series, as Phil Jackson picked up an early technical. Shaq was not interested in having 6'9" Ben Wallace impede his offense this game, putting down one hard dribble and finishing off glass. Chauncey Billups bounced into a mid-range J for his first basket of the game, and Gary Payton sliced to the rim and finished off a slick Shaq dime. Chauncey B wasn't intimidated in the least by the man they called the Glove, as he worked off a pick and into another short jumper. Kobe was 1 for 4 to start the game after another miss from the wing, Billups then giving Payton the work again, a mean crossover and flip finish in transition. Back to work from the triangle for the Lakers, Shaq babying Wallace in the post again with a patented turnaround hook this time. Diesel up to an effortless 10 points in the first quarter as Shaq finished an alley-oop from Gary Payton, which definitely should have been called for offensive interference, but who's counting? Watch this defense on Kobe by Tayshaun Prince, denying him off the ball in the corner, before fighting over a lazy screen by Karl Malone and contesting his jumper as tightly as humanly possible. Rasheed Wallace was a key cog for the Pistons, acquired at the 2004 trade deadline. He played against and lost to the Lakers 5 times already in his career as a member of the Portland Trailblazers, so you know this matchup meant a lot to him personally.
I'm like, here it is. I was just in this building a few years ago trying to get to an NBA Finals, but it fell apart for us. Then, it fell apart for us quite a few times dealing with LA because the dynamic duo, man.
But of course, Sheed was intimidated by no man in the NBA.
Inside to Rasheed Wallace.
Karl Malone finally getting on the board, a smooth 15-footer to give the Lakers a lead through 12. Shaq not letting up to begin the second. this time post-hooking over veteran Eldon Campbell. This time watch Ben Wallace on defense for Detroit, reacting to cut off a potential easy hoop for Derek Fisher in transition. Then in the half court, he saw Kobe picking up his dribble with an attack move, so he left his mark, stayed in the paint, contested the Bryant attempt, and was the first one back on the glass. Now that's the good stuff, man. Now down 2, Shaq working on the glass to free up.
And Fisher is there to follow and gets fouled. Great play by Fisher. O'Neal entangled and screaming for a foul and didn't get it. And the little guy got underneath and puts it in.
I did not see a Derek Fisher and one coming, I'll be honest. I did, however, anticipate a number of Shaq and ones in this game, and he got one to put the Lakers back up 1. I've given the Pistons a lot of praise for their defense in the video, and justifiably so. But watch this play from Shaq.
Payton works to O'Neal, turned around, goes in, and Shaquille O'Neal 17 points in about 17 minutes of action.
I mean, how do you even stop that? How? Ben Wallace doing a bit of everything for Detroit. A sexy touch pass over to Rasheed for the easy dunk. Kobe Bryant was just 1 for 8 at this point in the game, but was finally able to get one to fall. An impossible look over Tayshaun along the baseline. Unfortunately, that Kobe bucket would be the last Lakers hoop for like a year. Okay, more like 4 minutes, but yeah, it got ugly. Old man Karl Malone rejected on the inside by Ben Wallace. Young man Kobe rejected on the inside as well, this time by Rasheed Wallace. Tayshaun Prince rewarded for his defensive work in transition.
Quickly to Prince, he's going to drive all the way. Put it in, count it, goes to the line.
Defense leading to offense, you love to see it. Kobe trying everything to get back on track. A tough spin jumper from the elbow was well off. How about a super clean look for Kobe after Tayshaun fell?
Kobe gets an open look.
Bryant, boy, he's not even close tonight.
Yeah, no, Al Michaels is a savage, but correct. Also, Ben Wallace running the floor like a gazelle for the finish. Speaking of running, my guy Mike James, Toronto Raptor legend, into the game for the Pistons and immediately pushing the break for 2. The Detroit flood continued as Big Ben disrupted a Shaq attempt at the rim, and Mike James again down the floor in a flash for 2 on the goaltend. Mercifully, Kobe would finally get a shot to fall, a buzzer-beating 3 in the corner to stop the bleeding just before half. I've mentioned his name a number of times already in this video, but let's take a deeper look at Ben Wallace. I feel like I say this a lot, but Big Ben is truly one of the most fascinating NBA players to deep dive on. Wallace was all-state in high school for both football and baseball in addition to basketball, but wasn't on the radar of any NCAA schools. He'd spent 2 years playing junior college ball at a little school called Cuyahoga Community College in Cleveland. You ever heard of it? No, there's no chance you ever have. Ben would then move on to Virginia Union, an NCAA Div 2 school for a couple years, and unsurprisingly wasn't drafted into the NBA. After considering the possibility of playing overseas in Italy, Wallace would eventually land a contract with the Washington Bullets, before becoming a full-time starter with the Orlando Magic in 1999, before becoming a star with the Pistons following his arrival in D-Town in 2000. But his path to stardom and method of dominance was so unique, which helped endure him to a lot of fans, including yours truly back in the day. Over a 6-year stretch with the Pistons from 2001 through 06, Wallace would average just 8 points a game, but he did grab 13 rebounds per game and swatted 3 shots a game. He won 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards in the span of 5 seasons, and in 2003 had the Mona Lisa of crazy stat lines: 6.9 points, 15.4 rebounds, and 3.2 blocks per game. For stat nerds such as myself, Ben Wallace's basketball reference page is like catnip to a Garfield. Wait, except Garfield loved lasagna, right? And I love lasagna too. So Ben Wallace's unique stat lines are like lasagna to... Yeah, never mind, I'll just stop. It's almost like Shaq just heard all my Ben Wallace praise, because he manhandled the much smaller Wallace for another drop step slam. Karl Malone was unfortunately a liability for the Lakers in this game. Watch Rasheed Wallace dropping completely off the 40-year-old to prevent the entry pass to Shaq, resulting in the possession ending with a hopeless flick up at the buzzer. When the Lakers were able to get Shaq the rock though, well, once again, it was literally unstoppable. This time scooping one around both Wallaces in the paint. Another amazing sequence for the Pistons right here. Kobe driving from the top of the arc would end up being surrounded by 3 white jerseys, forcing up a truly impossible shot. With lightning quick reflexes, Ben Wallace literally punched the ball out to Rasheed Wallace, which led to a free dunk for Chauncey Billups. These Pistons played so ugly, man, but hey. Once again, the Pistons were absolutely clamping, as Kobe was forced into another ridiculous shot clock buzzer-beating heave, and of course, he made it, because Kobe. Rasheed Wallace was awesome in this game, taking a feed in the post, and immediately going to work with a shimmy hook over his left shoulder. Next possession down.
Right back to Wallace.
They do it again, Rasheed and Medvedenko, and that time he puts it in, it counts off the glass, and he's fouled.
I mean, that's a phenomenal shot. Sheed had woken up. But Shaq was like Charles Minor at a company volleyball game telling Jim Halpert, "I've been up for a while," as he dropped in yet another deuce from the post. Gary Payton dove to the rim off a broken play and scored. Then in transition, Kobe with his first and only truly easy look of the game, taking a Luke Walton feed for the slam. Rip Hamilton had been silent offensively to this point in the game, but tied the game back up at 56, where the score would sit as we headed into the fourth. This was it for the Pistons. Up 2-1 in the series, tie game to begin the final quarter of Game 4. If they didn't pull this one off, there was the potential of returning to LA for Game 6 and 7.
And we all pretty much was thinking it and brought it up like, yo, y'all know we can't go back. Because y'all know what's going to happen if we go back. So we're going to have to end this right here in Detroit.
And on the other side, the chance to steal home court advantage back was right here for the Lakers with a strong quarter. More defense to offense for the home side though, with Eldon Campbell rejecting a shot inside, then Richard Hamilton turning it back up in transition, neatly stopping on a dime for a short jumper. Hamilton extending the lead to 4 with an active mid-range J off the Ben Wallace handoff. As he began to come alive here in the fourth, allow me to point out the extra motivation in this game for Rip Hamilton. Apparently he and Kobe Bryant had a personal rivalry, dating back to their days in high school in Pennsylvania, where Kobe would beat Rip and his team in the state championship and never let him forget about it.
I was walking through the locker room looking at Ben and Rasheed and Chauncey and them guys, and I'm like, bro, I can't let this dude beat me again. I can't do it.
That's good stuff, man. You could tell this really meant a lot to Rip. Anyways, Bryant with his best move of the game by far. A sexy up and under and finish off the window. Tayshaun Prince was glued to Kobe defensively as once again, the Pistons forced LA to waste the shot clock, and the final attempt from number 8 was just brutal. And also once again, defense leading to offense as Rasheed finished off a lob from Chauncey B, the Palace was rocking. It was truly Shaq or bust for the Lakers offense, this time O'Neal finding himself under the basket for a free flush. One of the very few touches for Ben Wallace on the offensive end as he frenetically made his move and was fouled by Shaq. In a big moment, Ben made 1 of 2 from the line, but
Al, if they don't do it tonight, they absolutely have to do it Tuesday.
And Wallace gets the miss and puts it back in.
What a wild play. If it wasn't his stats or his hair that made you love Ben, it was his incomparable all-out energy on the floor. Rasheed Wallace with 2 more of his team-high 26 points, taking a laser feed from Rip Hamilton before sinking the midi. Meanwhile, the Lakers' only move at this point in the game was Shaq from the post, a quick spin, finish, and foul. I mean, come on. It was unstoppable. I've said that word like 9 million times this video, and I can't think of another way to describe it. Despite Shaq's dominance, however, there's a reason they called Chauncey Billups Mr. Big Shot.
Billups will put it up from outside. 3-pointer.
The year was 2004, and that was the first Pistons 3-point make of an NBA Finals game. Guys, remember, no team had ever come back from a 3-1 deficit to win the finals. Ha! Kobe had checked back into the game after a short rest, and a great feed on the drive off to Shaq, who finished through contact for his 78th and 1 of the game. He missed the free throw, however. Detroit was content to surrender 2s to Shaq at this point, considering
Billups from beyond the arc. 6-point game again. Chauncey Billups.
All of a sudden they were firing up 3s like the 2018 Houston Rockets. Except they were making some of them. Rasheed from the free throw line made a pair, giving the Pistons an 8-point lead, their biggest of Game 4. Things going from bad to worse for the Lakers, Rip Hamilton in Gary Payton's kitchen, and the glove whistled for an offensive foul. Moments later, Kobe called for a ticky-tack foul on Billups, and the Lakers were losing their composure. A technical called on Kobe. LA needed something badly, with a double-digit deficit now. Still nothing easy for Kobe with Tayshaun draped all over him, an impressive hang and hit off glass though. Speaking of Prince, after a Chauncey miss from the perimeter, Tayshaun collecting a clutch O board, which eventually would lead to Rip Hamilton again getting fouled. In the bonus, he'd make a pair from the line. To cut the lead down to 8, Shaq finishing another alley-oop on the feed from Slava Medvedenko, but the Pistons were quick to answer, with Rip curling off another screen and dropping in a floater from the paint. Kobe fired up a quick contested triple on the ensuing possession, and you could start to feel what was inevitable in this game. Rasheed Wallace once again the go-to for the Pistons in the clutch. A rainbow fader from the left mid-block, looking like a prime Karl Malone on that shot, while, 97-year-old Karl Malone watched from the bench. A little hook shot inside from Medvedenko, then Kobe a slicing finish with his right hand, and it was back to a 6-point game, but it was too little too late.
Instead it's Rasheed, and that should be the dagger.
Hey, Al Michaels said it, not me. I would never jump to conclusions about a game being over this early. In reality, Al the OG was correct. The Pistons beat the Lakers by 8 points in a gutty fourth quarter performance. Shaq was dominant all night, finishing with 36 points and 20 rebounds, but the Pistons simply didn't let the Lakers have anything else. If it wasn't Shaq on the low block, LA basically wasn't scoring. Kobe finished the game with just 20 points on 8 of 27 shooting. But to be fair, time and again he was asked to fire up contested shots as the shot clock was expiring, once again a credit to the Pistons' suffocating defense. Detroit took a 3-1 series lead on their home floor, and of course they wouldn't blow that, winning the NBA Finals in 5 games. When looking back at the 2004 Lakers with hindsight, I have absolutely no issues referring to them as a super team. As outlined, the pedigree of their roster from top to bottom, as well the way in which their roster was constructed, it fits the definition of a super team that any NBA fan could possibly conjure up. However, with that being said, it's also not difficult in the slightest to see how this team would and did fail in the end. I've exhausted the conversation on Shaq and Kobe's feud here on my channel, but even with the two of them being arguably the two best players in the NBA, I don't think any level of talent could overcome your two best players simply hating each other. We know the extenuating circumstances that were plaguing Kobe during the 03-04 season, but his finals performance is still downright inexcusable. He'd averaged just 22.5 points a game on 38% shooting from the field. That is super bad. Probably as a result of the tenacious defensive acumen of the Pistons, including that of Ben Wallace, Shaq averaged just 26.5 points a game, which sounds great, but is a far cry from the 36 a game he averaged just 2 years prior in the 02 NBA Finals. In addition, the additions of Gary Payton and Karl Malone seemed unfair on paper, but not on paper, they were really bad. In the finals, Malone would produce just 5 points, 7 rebounds, and 31 minutes per game while battling injury, while Gary Payton averaged 4 points, 4 assists, and 33 minutes a game? That's a yikes from me, dog. Malone would retire the following season, while Payton stuck around the league for a few more years, eventually winning a chip alongside Shaq in Miami in 2006 at the age of 37. Meanwhile, the 2004 finals loss would actually level the Lakers organization in pretty spectacular fashion. The rift between Shaq and Kobe was too great to mend, resulting in the front office choosing Kobe over Shaq, with Diesel eventually being shipped to Miami. Additionally, Phil Jackson stepped down from his position as head coach, and wrote a book on the season that was, skewering Kobe pretty well in the process. I talked at length about the demise of the Lakers, as well the relationship between Kobe and Phil in a previous video here on my channel. I highly suggest you check that one out for more detail on this failed Lakers super team. For each game covered here on Basketball Cinema, I'll be giving out 3 awards, beginning with the Clint Hawkeye Barton Award for Most Underrated Performer.
I don't care.
Which goes to Tayshaun Prince. Where Ben Wallace became an icon for his work defensively, Chauncey Billups would win Finals MVP, Rasheed Wallace was a bona fide all-star, and Rip Hamilton was the flashy wing scorer, Tayshaun Prince kind of flew under the radar as the 5th starter for this Pistons team. At just 23 years of age, Prince would average 10.7 rebounds per game in the 04 Finals, and his length and activity were an invaluable weapon in the machine that was Detroit's defense. The Rick Dalton Award for Most Recognizable Moment goes to Darko Milicic. I didn't point it out earlier, but Darko Milicic played a grand total of 9 seconds in Game 4 of the 2004 NBA Finals. Didn't point it out because, 9 seconds. but it was an insane reminder to me that Milicic was selected by the Pistons 2nd overall at the 2003 draft. He was picked ahead of Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, but somehow the Pistons wouldn't live to regret it. One of the biggest draft busts in NBA history, but who cares? They won a title. Oh, also, apparently Darko Milicic's nickname is the Human Victory Cigar, so like, thanks for that, Basketball Reference. Thank you so much. And finally, the Mark Jackson,
with all due respect,
award for weirdest moment in this game goes to the late great Stu Scott for this story on Ben Wallace and his hairstyles.
Ben Wallace is sporting the fro for the 2nd straight night. I say, yo dog, what's up with the afro? He said, I can wear the afro at home. I got to go with the braids on the road. I said, why? He said, because on the road, the fans just like to do a whole lot of jokey jokes. I said, like what? He said, well, I get a whole lot of buckwheat this, buckwheat that. And then some fans say, yo, Ben, you make all that money, you can't afford a $10 haircut? And I said to him, Ben, you got to admit that's funny, right? He said, yeah, it's funny, man, but I'm on the road. I can't be laughing at their jokes.
I mean, Stu Scott telling a great story. I had to fit it into this video at some point. And that's it. The Detroit Pistons beat the LA Lakers 88-80 on June 13th, 2004. 2 days later, they'd finished the series in 5 games, ending the Lakers' dynasty in the process. If you enjoyed this episode of the show, please consider dropping a like down below, and if you can see yourself watching a few more of these in the future, I'd suggest you hit that subscribe button as well, and leave me a comment on anything from this video. All of that helps the YouTube algorithm. Next week, I finally make a huge group of you all who watch these videos very happy, because we're looking at LeBron James' infamous 2011 Finals performance. But until that one, I'm Jay Canada, and this has been Basketball Cinema. Yeah, I'll be honest, I have no clue who that okay, that's not a word. But they had this fracture was partially, hold on. But even with them, oh my goodness. We know the extenuating oh my word. And wrote a book on the season that was,